elected student representatives and appointed specialist student consultants. This is on page 104 in your packs. Can you kick on?
Hello. I was at a conference not so long ago when somebody stood up in front of the whole of the UK and said, "I bloody love democracy," and that's been quoted in a few events since then. I think that there's a sort of muddying of the line between an elected representative and other students who are bringing other skills onto UHISA. Myself, for example, as Gaelic officer for the previous 2 years, where what you need from students who are helping UHISA is a very, very precise, very technical aspect, and that's extremely helpful. And then what UHISA should mostly be doing is representation, and that comes from elected representatives. And yesterday I sat through a process where we interviewed and appointed a student who will be on the Further Education Regional Board, and I definitely believe that we've picked an excellent person. But the process was very different from what it should have been, and I definitely think that we need the representatives, those who are saying this is what the students think, they should be elected, and anyone who's dealing with technical aspects, we shouldn't use the word representative. I'm suggesting consultant. We can come up with some other terminology if people want, but I think that we've created a dangerous precedent, and I think we should look at other NUS, other institutions, and see, is anyone else appointing representatives through panel and calling them representatives? I would think not. I think it's a dangerous precedent. I don't think it's democratic. I wouldn't want to undervalue the work that I did myself as Gaelic officer or that our SNSOs do, but I think we need to make a distinction between the two very important roles.
Thanks, Scotty. Right, does anyone have any points of clarification? Yeah, Alison.
I just wanted to check, when are you referring to any kind of, at the moment, student representatives, it kind of covers anybody who can be a class rep, right the way up to the people who are, as you say, like elected sort of representatives. Are you talking about even down to class rep level?
UHISA doesn't go down as far as class rep level yet. I may do a post-regionalisation project, we're not sure. As far as the UHISA executive is concerned, I think if you're elected, you're a representative. If you're selected by any other means, co-option or an interview or lucky name out of a hat, then that gets a different term.
But would your job still be to represent the students?
Well, how can you represent students if you're not elected? Then you're not. You're just. It's a representative. Someone who has stood on a podium like this one, spoke to students and says, "This is what I think. Vote for me if you agree. Don't vote for me if you don't agree. Vote for the other guy or vote for Ron and get someone else to do the job." Yeah, that's what a representative should be.
Yeah, but that guy that's got in still has to represent the people that didn't vote for him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But he's still representative. Whereas someone who's what UHISA has been doing over the last couple of years is when I was co-opted as Gaelic officer.
And so did you represent people?
I was really working more on the technical nature on the Gaelic language plan, and the work I think that the SNSOs do is very technical as well. If you think that they're more representative, maybe they should go up to election. But I just think that the precedent of selecting people by any other means other than election and calling them representative of the students, I'm just not comfortable with it.
But if their job is to represent the students, then why can't you call them out? Just because you're not voted doesn't mean you can't represent people. Yes, you might not have been voted in by a body of people, but you can still represent.
Clarification?
Yeah. Can I just take answer?
It's clarification again. So where are you proposing this change to be made? Is this only for executive meetings, or is this... Because what I'm basically thinking about things like class reps, does that mean that, like, if one of them comes to an exec meeting, they have to be termed as a class consultant, or like, where is this applicable?
Well, I'm not in this NSO, so I mean I don't know the work in any great detail. I would say you know, if you go into a meeting with any of with college principals or subject network leaders or with the vice chancellor himself, to go into the office and say, "Hello, I represent students." I we just need to stand back from that. To be elected students are representatives. Anyone else is, and it doesn't. We don't have to use the word consultant. If somebody can think of a better term, then that's. Then I would be open to that. But I think that we've opened a can of worms here, and I don't think that the other university student associations would be comfortable with what we're doing.
Kat, is it clarification?
Yeah, I was just going to ask. Like, I try to think how to say this in sort of like a clarification point. Like, the SNSOs do a bit of representation because they will sit with their subject leaders and say, this isn't working, and that is representation, because what they say is our students aren't finding this okay in the course, and that is representation. I think it's a really technical issue, and I'm not like, how important do you see
if they're doing, yeah, if I think, and perhaps this is a motion for another time, but I think if the main job is then representation, then they need to become elected posts and not selected by a panel.
Okay, thanks, Scotty. Right, I think that probably covers points for clarification. We haven't got any formal amendments to this. Oh,
no,
yeah.
It was a formal against it.
Yeah.
Okay, we haven't got any formal amendments.
Would you be able to kind of clarify the current situation with regards to SNSOs as you manage, not manage, but you support them in their role?
Support them, yes,
So
certainly.
explain the current status.
Yep, I mean, subject network student officers are appointed, and they go through an interview process, application interview process. They are there then to consult with their students, as Scott is proposing about consultants, but they do fulfil the role of representing students in subject network committees. The description is a student. The role is a student representative, and that role is filled by the subject network student officers and so on, and other people as well. There is people when you're talking about course and class reps, although all of them should be elected in a process, some are kind of handpicked as, well, you'll do because you were last in the room, sad to say, or you'll do, you're quite vocal, and so on. So, I mean, there is quite a mixed bag here. I think what it's about is whether they are being consulted, as Scotty has said, about the student opinion, about what affects the student, and their role is absolutely, they're the student expert and they're giving their advice as being a student of that experience. So that's the current stance, is that subject network student officers are indeed appointed. Other people are chosen. They do not go through an election process for course programme representatives. It's not something I'm hands-on involved in, but that's the current status.
Thank you. Okay, there's no amendments and there's no parts that have been submitted, so I think we're going to move to summing up. So, have we got a speech against the motion? Yeah.
I am a subject network student officer, and I sit on the subject network committee for computing and IT and the Arts, Humanities and Business Faculty Board of Study currently, but possibly not for very long. And it's very clear to me from them that I'm there to represent students, and quite often on issues that will affect students, say, Aisling, what do students think about that? And quite often I've gotten the papers really late, and I have to say, I don't know, so I have to come back. But they're quite clear that I'm there to represent students. And I know that when I'm talking to students, they get very confused by semantics. And if I talk about a consultant coming to talk to them, they think it's someone who's going to come and do statistics and write a report that's never going to change anything. And they switch off immediately. Whereas if it's a representative, okay, I get some of the really obvious issues like our computers are rubbish. But if I can get them engaged at all, then I can talk to them. And I think if I'm expected to represent students on a committee, then I should be able to call myself a representative and actually engage students who would otherwise not engage with me.
Thank you. Does anybody want to give a 1-minute speech in favour? In favour?
Yeah, I just really part thing. I think that is maybe something that's up for discussion next. I do think that people that you have, I don't think it's something we can say, okay, if you're representing students in Hull, you have to be Hull representative. But I think if more than 50% of your work is representation, I think that our legislation, policy, institution, whatever you want to call it, should be changed, that if your key role is representation, you should be elected in by the students you're representing.
Thank you. And 1 minute against anybody? Yep. Yes, if you don't mind, just because it's easier for the video.
I'll be quick. Overall, I actually agree with you, Scotty, but I don't think that this is the right way to do it. I agree that there is a sort of muddying of the waters here, but that I just don't feel that this motion covers exactly who are we talking about, at what levels, class all the way through, are we talking just meetings? I just think that it's so unclear from this actual motion, and I don't see a way to amend it that is going to answer all the questions that people have been raising. And the other thing I want to say is that in UHISA at the moment, some of the elected reps are elected by very, very low numbers of people, which is not their fault, it's just because of the way things are at the moment, and can be elected by very non-representative groups, because in some cases, if you just get all of your friends to vote, then you can get in because so few people are voting. So at the moment, I just think that we're not ready for this, but this is something maybe to look at in the future when we have better representation in voting.
Thank you. Right, anybody else want 45 seconds for in favour discussing? In that case, do you want to do 45 against? Did you have any?
Yeah. I'll take that when we get out. I just think that saying that just because somebody's been chosen by a panel that they are incapable of representing people is just political elitism gone mad. Just because they've not been elected does not mean they cannot effectively represent students. If it's part of their job, trust them to do their job. I think that's all I'm saying, basically.
Thank you. And in that case, we're going to go to vote now overall on the motion. So, all those in favour of the motion, please put up your hands.
Sorry, 3 in total, yeah?
Sorry, how many was that? Sorry?
3.
3. Sorry, I didn't hear. And against?
Oh, 2. 19.
26.
26. And abstaining? 2. That adds up.
3.
2.
In that case, the motion is not passed. Thank you.